Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dimensional Walking, and I'm Rainbow. Today's video is going to be on a topic that is very important for me. It's very interesting, and it has to do with MK Ultra. And I've been following a couple channels. One in particular is Project Camelot, which I think a lot of you who follow this channel probably already know about Carrie Cassidy. And then I follow another one called The Bases with Miles Johnston. And I probably have been following Project Camelot since she started. And Bases I started watching them probably around the same time. And it was in the, let's see, easily um, 2000s. I was, let's see, probably around 2006, 2007, something like that. Now, I don't know when Carrie Cassidy started uh, her channel. But what I do know is that I started looking into all of this because of my past memories when I was a child. Now, the information that I'm going to be giving you is something that I think probably many of you are aware of if you've been following MK Ultra, because I think that alien abductions, Men in Black, MK Ultra, I think mind control, which is it's basically mind control. I think they all kind of go hand in hand with the paranormal. And so the reason why I'm interested in it is because I'm also interested in the concept of false memory. If something can be implanted into somebody and then have that person not know that they have been taken and have no idea that the memory that they think is real is not. I find that extremely disconcerting that there would actually be groups going out there and doing this. And so I also think that it all has to do with that the government aspect and the military aspect of obviously war, because I think that when you have different groups going at each other, and it's I think it's even way before the United States was established. I think this goes back thousands of years. I think many different groups have done different types of trauma-based uh, mind control so that they can make sure that the enemy doesn't get vital information. So what I'm going to do today is just kind of talk to you guys about what it's all about. I actually researched it for you so that I can give you some dates and stuff like that and some names of people who actually have talked about this. So here we go. So MK Ultra is called by different names, such as CIA Hypnosis, Magic, or Project MK Ultra. Mind control supposedly started around the Cold War, but it had been happening for hundreds of years, I think, obviously, way before the Cold War. I believe that it went even beyond the Egyptians. It started, now what we know as MK Ultra started around 1941 to 1945. MK Ultra was an umbrella project under which a broad spectrum of sensitive activities was financed. Some of the activities included research into behavioral modification by means of drugs and hypnosis, involving tests done on human volunteers, sometimes unwitting subjects. So you could volunteer for the program, and sometimes you didn't know you were in the program. I find that pretty scary. It went from MK Ultra to Bluebird in 1948 to 1949, and then morphed into Artichoke in 1952. It was shut down in 1964, but we really know it wasn't. It's probably just called another name. There was testimony in the Senate in 1977 from former CIA Director Admiral Stansfield Turner, who was a CIA director from 1953 to 1961. Part of the purpose was brainwashing people, controlling people's behavior without their knowledge. The military purpose was to create hypno assassins, also known as Manchurian candidates. They wanted to make sure that they had no memory of their programming. And I'm sure you've all seen The Manchurian Candidate. If you haven't, there were two movies made. The latest one was phenomenal. I believe Denzel Washington was in that one. It's really good. They also wanted them to be military couriers delivering messages. So MK Ultra was basically this program where there was different compartments into it. It was stated before, it's an umbrella program where there's different aspects of it. And for the military aspect, they wanted to have it to where they can actually have their soldiers go into specific areas, deliver messages, and not have any idea of what they're doing. It's called a split personality in the old days, and I think now they don't call it that. They just basically call it a split from the core. So it's not like having a lot of different personalities. It's basically just splitting from your core and it's just developing some new aspect of a character or a person. And um, so it's just the splits are scattered from the core. And how this would work when the military careers were delivering their messages as a soldier would be called in for an assignment, he would then accept orders by his commander. There would be a code word or phrase then used by someone else, and then the soldier would take the real orders. He would be taken out of hypnosis and then travel to wherever they wanted him to go. Once he was at his destination, the code word or phrase would be used again. Information would be exchanged and he would come back with the file they initially intended him to come back with. All this without his knowledge or memory. Richard Helms, who was the CIA director in the 60s, along with Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, supposedly a medical supervisor, destroyed files and paperwork pertaining to MK Ultra. They didn't want anything that they were doing to be accessed by the public or anybody else because they probably would have had ramifications because of it. There were other programs that were very seedy. One called Operation Midnight Climax had prostitutes bring in tricks, otherwise known as Johns, to a designated hippie crash pad. And without the knowledge of the Johns, they were given drugs and then they were studied. And I don't know if, I think they probably had a mirror where they looked one way, which is kind of creepy, and they would study the effects the drugs had on them. And these are people who had no idea they were being test subjects. And can you imagine these guys or girls, whoever, going home and then what happened with their family life? What happened to them? Because sometimes there were bad trips that would happen with the drugs that were used. So the drug of choice that was used to test on people was LSD. The government contracted with Eli Lilly, who was the first company to create LSD in 1953 to 1954. There was something known as BZ, a super LSD, where a person would be on a hallucinating trip for 4 days. It wasn't straight LSD, there were other drugs mixed in. The CIA got the idea for mescaline and hallucinogens from Dr. Joseph Mengele and other Nazi doctors who used them in death camps for interrogation purposes. The major interest was for all the tests to see if they could replace real. Well, let me backtrack here. The major interest here was okay, what if somebody gets caught? What do we do with them? What if we've done all these tests on someone who doesn't know? What do we do with that person? What happens when like I was saying, they get interrogated and we don't want them to get real information. So they would implant false information, having the person really believe that that's what they did. So again, I'll just go backtrack on this. The major interest was for in the testing to see if they could replace real memories with false memories without the subject knowing it. Then there was a problem of what to do with the subjects when they were done with the experiments. They called the problem disposal of the subjects. That's what they called it, the problem of disposal of subjects. This is why they were so interested in the implanting of false memories. They knew they couldn't kill the test subjects, so they had to figure out another way to make sure people didn't become aware of what was done to them. Another way of looking at MK Ultra is classical conditioning. During the Cold War, there was the idea called communist brainwashing techniques where they would condition certain Chinese. Okay, let me backtrack here. During the Cold War, there was an idea called communist brainwashing techniques. So what we would do is if we had any Chinese groups coming in who were living here in the United States, the U.S. wanted to send them back home as CIA agents, supposedly. Okay, this is just the information that I've come up with. Under hypnosis, they tried to make many things happen. They basically influenced, coerced, persuaded, or shaped them to go the person that they're trying to change into an agent, or they're trying to actually see if they can do this. So they're trying to get them to go against their morals, to do destructive acts or acts of violence. The Manchurian Candidate comes to mind, obviously. So what's very scary here is that they don't have any idea of the fact that they have been taken into these programs and then their memories have been switched or altered. So that's kind of why I was saying that I don't think it's necessarily split personalities. I think it's just altering the idea that a person has in their mind of what reality is and what it isn't. So someone will say, "I know, I remember that. That was my life. I remember that situation like it was yesterday." They can implant a memory and have you believe that it was just like yesterday that that really happened to you. And that's what is really scary. This was called a Jekyll and Hyde personality or a Jones A and a Jones B. The hypnotic implanted core word or phrase would come in at pivotal moments for the assignment, but the subject would have a complete amnestic barrier. This had to take place because the military was all about protecting the assignment in case the subjects were captured or interrogated. Taken a step further, they implanted false memories by erasing a person's real memories and replacing them, giving the idea that the person really believed those were their real memories. So there's a reason why I'm at the end of this video, I'll tell you why I was interested in this. But just remember this part. This would act as a cover and protect the assignment. There are many different types of programs for different objectives. So now let's get into another program because there were also different people who were brought into the program, specifically women, who were actually their assignments were to infiltrate or go into um, create, I should say, relationships with different men in positions of power and gain information from them, or actually be able to, with the ability to remember verbatim information, to go to a place assigned to them, have them fly out, gather information, come back, and be able to say verbatim what that the information was. So there were women who were actually used for this. I think there's a term um, that I remember from a long time ago. I think Washington secretary, something like that. Um, it's just I think a funny way of saying call girl. Um, so something like that. I kind of remember something about that. So Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, authors of Transformation of America, and it's TRANCE dash FORMATION. Trans in a Transformation of America, and also another book called Access Denied, were the first to talk about a government program called Project Monarch. Transformation of America is the documented autobiography of uh, a victim of government mind control. Kathy O'Brien is a vocal and recovered survivor of the Central Intelligence Agency's MK Ultra Project Monarch mind control operation. So Kathy and Mark wrote these books a long while ago. If you can find them, I highly suggest getting them. It'll give you a lot more detailed information on what she experienced and what she says is going on. The same concept as was for agents under hypnosis was to have someone infiltrate in a different capacity to gather information verbatim. I just said that, remembering messages from one assignment to the next, which means you have the ability to just remember everything and be able to bring it back. I can't do that, but I'm always amazed at people who have that kind of memory, who they can remember everything in detail. The program involved there's another program. Well, let me put it to you this way. This program starts off in a very horrible way. So, how do they find these women? How do they find these people who will go in and do this? Well, the program involved it the program involved testing children, but these children weren't just anybody. These were children who were from multi-generational abuse. These were children already having problems at home from parents who were drug addicts, from parents who were in different types of occults, who were actually sexually assaulting them themselves, family members assaulting them. They wanted them to have an unbalanced home base so that they could take them from that aspect and then re-trauma them so that they can have them kind of splinter off and have the capability of doing the work that they wanted them to do. So it says here that they found genetics are affected by trauma. I have no idea about that. I thought that was very interesting. It's called compartmentalized trauma. This results in polyfragmented. Um, let's see here. That apart. So this results in polyfragmented dissociative disorder, which is much better than multiple personalities that they say happen to somebody. And it basically just means the split from one's core. And this is actually how Kathy explains it. So if you can find Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, if you can find their information, anything on what she's experienced, you can find it on YouTube. I highly recommend you do that. In the past, they called it split personality disorder, but now they feel this better explains what happens to trauma victims. The person can continue to split from his or her core. What the victims who get therapy have to do is to pick up the pieces of each split and put themselves back together by understanding the concept of time during the memories of the abuse. So, Kathy explained that when a child is abused, that time stops. They have no idea the concept of time. And if you continually traumatize a child, their concept of time is entirely different than ours, anybody else who has not been through that type of trauma. And so what Mark had her do is he gave her a watch, and every time that she had a memory flash back to her, when she remembered what happened to her, he would have her write it down in a diary so that she can kind of gain back a sense of herself and gain back time that she lost. So it says here, time tends to stop for victims of continual abuse. As I stated, they don't have the same sense of time because they split from their core during the abuse. So they don't view reality in the same way that we do. That is part of the trauma. That's why they want to traumatize these kids more so that they can make sure that they don't go back to their core and live a healthy life. They don't want that. Kathy O'Brien states that with the conscious mind, there is a choice, but the subconscious mind can be manipulated or controlled. So that's something really important to understand. You have to go back to the core of who you are, to your higher self. And doing that and remembering a lot of the trauma that happens is not always easy. There's another program, another aspect of all of this, and this is mind controlled super soldiers. And so you have the different parts of the umbrella where you have the first group is soldiers coming and going, and the Manchurian Candidate, I should say. We have the Manchurian Candidate aspect of a specific program. Then we have the the core element of, or I should say not the core element, but the women who are dealing with the core, their core being split, who come from dysfunctional families. And so they're used for specific programs as well. And then you have the super soldiers, and the super soldiers are more on the military aspect, and they're involved in programs where they state that they have come from what Kathy O'Brien stated, from childhoods that were um, traumatic and abusive, and they were taken in, and they then were, from very young ages up until they got older, they were always involved in programs with the military. Such super soldiers, or also there's also a different version of this called the MyLabs, and those usually have to do with anything underground. Max Beers was one. James Casbolt, also known as Michael Prince, was another. Duncan O'Finian, Niara Isley, and I had the chance to meet her as well as Michael, and she came to talk at the New Mexico UFO Forum, Paranormal Forum. She came and talked way back, let's see, in 2013, 2014 in New Mexico. So she has a really good book that is out. And then there was someone that Michael and I had met who actually he was like a super soldier. His name was Rick. And Rick had the ability to stay underwater for long periods of time. So he was altered so that he could do these Black Project programs they needed him to do. But he was very unusual. He had special gifts that were unique onto him. So, from what I understand, is that with the super soldier, with that particular program, not only are they able to alter physically what these specific people can do, but these specific people were in different aspects trained and they learned how, or they were just born empathic and psychic. So they were able to handle these intense programs that they were involved in. And they have unique abilities. Some of them can run really fast, some of them can jump, some of them are very strong. Others can, like Rick, can go underwater for long periods of time. So the super soldier is just another aspect of that umbrella. So, and it has to do with mind control, and it has to do with something that's trauma based. So it has to do with the idea of taking someone and creating something entirely, another version of them that is entirely new. And the unfortunate thing about that is that all these people, they don't have the normal lives that people who don't have this trauma or aren't involved in these programs have. And that's what I think is very, very sad. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because when I have talked in the past about the different things that I have gone through, I was curious as to how, when a person believes that they're abducted, and when they believe they're abducted by specific alien groups and have such intense memory as I do, and I actually have people who are able to corroborate with what I remember. They've actually have that, and I was so happy to have someone who was basically around and said, "Yeah, that happened." So I wasn't going nuts. But I think that I'm curious as to how, when aliens abduct people, if also that this ability to mind control was learned from them, if they were the ones that taught it to different groups here on the planet, or they were here on the planet all along and this is just something that they've been able to do, and um, this has just been incorporated into the different factions of the military, the government, and who knows. uh, but I wonder if my memories are true to what I remember or if somebody put them in there. Because not every memory that I have I had people say, "Oh, yeah, I was there. I remember that happening." I've had enough people say, "Yeah, I was there when something happened," so that uh, I feel comfortable that I did have memories and experiences. Plus, I have family, and we've talked about our experiences, and we've talked about things that have happened to us, and they correlate to each other. So I think that's important to talk to the different people around you to see what they remember or if they know of anything happening. What's what their memories are versus yours. I think you have to actually kind of, in a way, debunk um, yourself in a way. But I think also you have to have the ability to just stand up for the truth and say, no, I know this specific situation happened to me. And I didn't have the trauma that I have just talked about, where I had, I would think I was very lucky. I think that the gentleman that was like a handler for me, somehow he got me out of it, or somehow because of him, I didn't experience it. And I'm very grateful for that. I think I could have been one of those people who could have had a lot of trauma done to me, and I'm just very grateful that I didn't have that. That I had the family that I had, because I had good, really wonderful parents who were caring, and they would not have let anything happen to me. So interesting enough, this is happening today, and the one thing that I've come to realize is that it's something that is done in the occult realm, constant trauma, and it's something also that I think is still a part of a lot of people's experiences that are looking into MK Ultra. I know a lot of people have talked that I think something happened to me and I'm not sure. And I think the more that we put this information out there and the more we talk about it, I don't think it can be something that can be, thrown under the rug. So, anyways, tell me what you think. Tell me if you had any experiences or if you remember anything. Comment down below. I appreciate you watching this video. I hope it made sense. Um, I find it something that is very sad that stuff like this happens, that we feel that society feels that this isn't real because it's very real. So you guys take care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.